Hey everyone, it took a few weeks, but we finally done it. We finally have an Aetherborn tribal deck to be proud of, and let me just tell you, this is awesome. If you enjoy Aether-based hilarity, more +1/+1 counters than you can shake a stick at, and a fabulous tribal strategy for under $35, you've come to the right place. We'll be using TCG player pricing throughout the video to show you how truly cheap the deck is, and if you want to see the list in full or buy any of the pieces for it, you can click the first link in the description. Alright, without further ado, we have to talk Tribal Aetherborn. If you enjoy this video and want more videos like this, be sure to hit that like button, helps out a lot. There are a few different directions we could have gone in when building Aetherborn Tribal, but we think that the most fun direction by far is the one we've chosen. As we go through the deck, you'll see a sick game plan take shape. We'll begin with Syndicate Trafficker. A solid card from Kaladesh, this Aetherborn is representative of everything we're trying to do with this deck. 3-1 for 2 is fine, but that ability is where we're going to focus our energy. Being able to sacrifice an artifact for a power toughness boost and indestructible until end of turn, well, that's just good value. You know what other creature enjoys good value? Yahenni. The Trafficker loves sacrificing artifacts, and Yahenni loves sacrificing creatures. So where do their passions meet? Servos! All the servos, that's right. This deck is about getting a buttload of counters and layers of protection on our Aetherborn via a servo production machine, then just going nuts and winning the game through disturbing amounts of value. Let me explain. The deck includes Weaponcraft Enthusiast and Servo Schematic. This is our servo engine, and it is efficient. The Enthusiast brings 2 servos with it that make great sacrifice fodder for both the Trafficker and Yahenni. As a matter of fact, this is the only variant of this strategy that I like the Enthusiast in. I'm pretty sure it was made for this, not even joking. Anyway, Servo Schematic performs a similar function. Brings in a servo for either of your sacrifice effects, then you can use the schematic itself for the Trafficker, then it leaves behind another servo. 3 activations out of 1 card at 2 mana? This might be the most underrated card in the strategy. It has performed wonderfully, providing additional fodder for our ever-growing Aetherborn tribe. The real backbone of the deck, though, the card that brings it all together, well, that's Animation Module. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed on a permanent you control, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 servo. This is everything we're trying to do right here. Animation Module plus Yahenni plus Syndicate Trafficker. Say hello to the ride of your +1/+1 counter life. The synergy here is beyond funny. You sacrifice an already existing artifact to the Trafficker, it gets a counter, triggers the module, pay the cost, you have another servo artifact to sacrifice to either your Trafficker again or Yahenni. When an opponent's creature dies, another 1-mana servo for sacrificial purposes. This may not seem like the flashiest combo around, but I am telling you, even just one of these 2 creatures and the module together are terrifying. Indestructible is a lot stronger than you might think when you're facing it down every turn. Alright, let's go a little deeper. We have a solid base here. Yahenni for counters and a sacrifice engine, the Trafficker for basically the same, the enablers and the schematic and module, but we have to fill the rest of the deck with real powerhouses, cards that want to be with these. And don't worry, we've picked the best around and they work. We'll begin with the most synergistic of them, Aetherborn Marauder. For all intents and purposes, this is the top end of the deck. 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer with lifelink might not seem so great, but when you can move a buttload of counters from the Trafficker, Yahenni, or both to the Marauder on entry to the battlefield, this thing becomes scary as heck. Instead of a 2/2, you're looking at a 6/6, or an 8/8, with flying and lifelink. That amount of counters isn't unreasonable, especially with the redundancy in your sacrifice fodder to the Trafficker, or your ability to keep Yahenni alive seemingly forever. The deck also includes Metallic Mimic, an obvious auto-include due to its tribal-friendly nature, but not only is it buffing all of our other Aetherborn, it's buffing them with counters! Counters we can move to our Marauder, or counters we can proliferate with Animation Module. Do you see what's happening here? Everything is coming together. Even Weaponcraft Enthusiast will enter the battlefield with counters now, or more counters in case you don't need the extra servos. Rounding out the rest of the deck are a few cards we need for consistency and, honestly, competitiveness. We're running Gifted Aetherborn and Midnight Entourage. Playset of the Gifted, 2 of the Entourage. Gifted Aetherborn is an obvious include because the card's absurd. 2 mana for a 2/3 with 2 relevant keywords, that's hard to fight already, but add to it the mass amount of counters it can accrue throughout the game, looking a lot better. Midnight Entourage is included in limited number for a few reasons. First, it does give some nice insurance to our Aetherborn that die. We replace them in our hand, that's insanely valuable, plus, +1/+1 never hurt anyone. The reason it's only a 2 of is because the cost is high on this one, and the deck overall is pretty low to the ground. We don't need it to be any more top heavy, the Entourage is a perfect pair for this strategy. The last 6 non-land cards in the deck are 4 Grasp of Darkness and 2 Essence Extraction. As far as budget options go, these are definitely our best. The Extraction is going to hit most of what we need to hit at 3 damage, and if that doesn't work, Grasp of Darkness will make sure they stay down. Even if either of these are used as combat tricks to help take down something big, still worth it since seemingly half of our creatures are indestructible most of the time or they have Death Touch. The deck puts up a surprising fight on the ground with this package. Add in 22 swamps and the deck is complete. Let's talk overview, sideboard suggestions, and upgrade options. This particular version of Aetherborn Tribal is looking to get a presence on the ground fast, then build up with solid synergies between the Trafficker, Yahenni, and our servo engine. The deck only needs to run 22 lands because it functions so low to the ground. The vast majority of the cards in this deck are at 2 mana or lower, so you shouldn't have any problem creating a respectable board state early. While your deck isn't the fastest, once you have your board up and running, don't be afraid to attack. You have a lot of lifelink, you have Death Touch, and naturally buffed creatures. Your average 2-mana creature should be bigger than their average 2-mana creature by the mid-game. Also, always try to leave up mana and a servo for the indestructible ability on both of your big guns. And this next suggestion is particularly important. You can wait to use your removal. If it's turn 2 or 3 and you have to decide between playing an Aetherborn or a removal spell, play out the Aetherborn. There's a decent amount of lifelink in your deck between the Gifted, the Marauder, and the Extraction alone. You can take a few hits early to develop your board, then make that life up later. It's far more important that you get the board developed first. It's hugely important, just trust me. Alright, sideboard suggestions. If you find yourself up against a control deck, if those ever end up existing again, Hope of Gyroper is actually quite annoying and affordable. It's a good include here. Something like Transgress the Mind or Harsh Scrutiny, maybe both, can end up being good against the Healy combo decks. Various creature-based strategies, really depends on what you need to make sure it doesn't hit the field. Lost Legacy, another solid anti-Saheeli card, might as well pack a few of those. Sideboard suggestions that aren't budget, Yahenni's Expertise and Kalitas for aggro-based decks, both powerhouses. If we're talking about financial upgrades to the deck to increase consistency, we're obviously talking about Fatal Push. You can trigger Revolt like nobody's business, and it's just clearly better than most any removal in the format. Slam dunk if you have it. Also, if you want to go a little bit bigger than Aetherborn Marauder for a win condition, I highly suggest Herald of Anguish. I have to make special mention of this card. I'm convinced the Herald was meant to be in this deck, it's literally perfect for it, and synergizes like crazy. Try this out. Improvise is easy to play off of in your deck, and once it's on the battlefield, your opponent is going to have a really bad time. Plus, it synergizes with Yahenni by killing your opponent's creatures, triggering Yahenni, triggering your module, make some servos, more artifacts to sacrifice. It is easily one of the more powerful synergies in the deck. If you can afford to grab yourself a couple copies of the Herald, please do it. This interaction is brutal to say the very least. Before we end, I know a few of you are going to have questions about us excluding certain cards. We're not running Gonti because the card simply doesn't fit in with what we're trying to do. Powerful, yes, but not necessary in this deck as we already have enough Aetherborn, and Gonti doesn't really add anything we need. If we did include them, we'd have to cut down on the Entourage or Marauder, not something I'm all that excited to do. We also chose not to include Vengeful Rebel. This was a tough call, but think about this. What would you remove for the Rebel? I know the synergy with Revolt is there, I do, but there simply isn't any room. We don't want to spend mana on revolting this when we are spending mana getting more counters for our counter-friendly creatures. Again, Revolt is powerful, and we think this is a great card, and if you want to use it, by all means include it, but you'll be hard-pressed to find something to take out that you won't miss. Trust me, the list is pretty tight, it's difficult to move from. So with all of that said, what do you think? How do you feel about our iteration of Aetherborn Tribal? This particular version is designed to play a little differently than a normal tribal deck would, and we honestly hope you enjoyed it. If you do like it or would want to make any changes or have an Aetherborn deck of your own, please comment below and let us know what you think. I really enjoy this strategy and would love to hear all of your thoughts on it. Also, if there are any standard strategies you'd like us to tech next, let me know, I'm all ears. Lastly, if you do like the deck and want to see the list in its entirety or purchase any of the pieces, you can do so by clicking the first link in the description. You can buy the entire thing for like $30 right now, no hassle, crazy easy. Again, link down below. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.